Sun Tzu, The Art of War, in chapter 7 on maneuvering, says, "He who knows the art of the direct and indirect approach will be victorious. Such is the art of maneuver." I was looking at Business Insider, and I love to look at stats, and I'm always tracking the operating system wars that are going out between Google, Microsoft, Apple. And one of the things that struck me really interestingly is that Business Insider had this chart about the operating systems of where Microsoft was. And it kind of tells you actually more than that. It's one thing to look at a chart, but now how does Sun Tzu play into it? Because like I said before, wherever there's competition, Sun Tzu's around. So if you look at these graphs, and actually I drew this, so I'll have it up on the screen where you can see it clearer, but I just did this myself by hand. If you look at year 2009, they show the different percentage points of different competitors, and I'll name them in a second for a reason. Where it shows how the market share from going from 2009 to 2013, kind of one entity expands. You probably know who the players are, but another contracts. But then I started thinking about it from a different perspective. I thought this was really cool. Is take away the 100% market share, and what you could look at it is you could see this line right here, the y-axis, as the battlefront. So if I'm Apple or if I'm Google, how do I compete in the operating systems war against Microsoft, who at the time still had dominant share? So let me just take out the guesswork. This is Android. All right, this is the Android operating system for the phone, smartphones. Of course, this is Microsoft OS, and this is for desktops. And then what you got here is you have Apple, and poor BlackBerry. I feel so sad for them. Actually, I don't feel sad for them. I could never use the little BlackBerry, you know, and people are always doing it with the BlackBerry. Just drove me nuts. So this is BlackBerry. And you know, this is other, and I'm sure under other, you're all kinds of other operating systems, and Nokia had their own operating system as well. So what you're seeing here is that this right here, the fluctuation and the contraction. So what you can, if you look at it from a Sun Tzu perspective, is that if you try to attack Microsoft direct, and this is why he has this quote, "He who knows the art of the direct and indirect, okay, approach will be victorious." So what happened was, if you tried to attack Microsoft directly, there's no way you could compete against them on the operating system, because they had the network effects involved in play, where you know everybody uses a Microsoft operating system, and the more people use it, the more people value it and continue to use it. It's like a vicious feedback system. So what's really happened is that, and of course Apple had their own operating system for the desktop, but they could never, you know, they could never even make a dent in the entire operating system marketplace, because they were more of a vertical player, where they also provided the hardware. And obviously Microsoft was able to dominate in the operating system sector because they licensed this operating system to different hardware manufacturers. So from a Sun Tzu perspective, to attack direct is pretty much in my opinion, corporate suicide. So what you see here is a very interesting attack on Microsoft operating system by Apple. Apple came out with the smartphone, and then of course Google, knowing that some of the people on the board of Apple were from Google, kind of figured out, hey, you know, they're coming out with iPhone. Of course I'm being sarcastic right now. We should come out with something. So instead of coming out with something, they bought out the Android system, operating system. And so now what's happened is that instead of competition attacking direct against Microsoft, you had a classic flanking move by competitors. In fact, if you look at some of the historical books in military, whether it's from Sun Tzu or Karl von Clausewitz or Liddell Hart, you'll see a classic case where you have a competitor one here, and then the opponent on one end, opponent one and opponent two, okay, they flank it. They flanked the competitor. Brilliant. You will see that in a lot of war analogies where the major military power was flanked by two smaller forces, and instead of attacking direct, they chose to flank the battlefront, and they might have at times maybe used some smaller forces to look like they're actually doing a frontal attack when in reality they were doing a flanking move. So what's so fascinating to me about this graph that Business Insider provided of why Microsoft was losing the war, I don't know if they said it, losing the war, but losing the market, in reality the war, is a classic case, absolute classic case of a flanking maneuver by two major competitors coming from the side, operating the attacking the operating system platform by not a direct approach, but a flanking approach. Now, of course, the irony is that Google is now having to duke it out with Apple. And here's little Microsoft, and this is the operating system for desktops, but their market share when it comes to smartphones is minimal. So the moral of the story is that the Microsoft was flanked in the operating major. If you look at the marketplace, and you can say the operating system on the desktop, the operating systems on the smartphones, but in reality, because everything is moving towards the smaller devices, now the battlefront, the major battlefront, and the war is actually being fought on the smartphone sector side. And desktops, obviously you see all these trends where the desktop PC sales are going down, everything else. So if you look at the marketplace, you can see that the PC sales of the desktops are going down, and that the smartphones are going up. So now what's happened is not only did Apple and Google flank Microsoft on the operating system side, but they've also shifted the battlefront from the desktop operating system to the smartphone operating system. So how does that relate to you? You have to always look at your marketplace, whatever your marketplace is, and make sure that you're not being flanked. The other thing which you have to look at is that if you have a cash cow in a product, so if you have, these are the same principles. Sun Tzu works for any business, any marketplace, and it was written 2,000 years ago, and it's one of those universal books that applies to any market sector. So for instance, if you have a product that's a cash cow, you have to be very careful to watch the life cycle of that cash cow. So if your cash cow life cycle is increasing, okay, you have to relate that to the competitor products, competitor product P1, competitor product P2, that it's not growing faster than your cash cow category. So this is a classic case of what happened with Microsoft. And it's actually worse because the operating systems, if you truly think about the desktop operating system, it's kind of like, the bell-shaped curve. If you look at a bell-shaped curve, it was probably, it's like here, it's going downwards. And then what's happened is that the smartphone operating system just skyrocketed. And it's still going up. Because there's still, I think there's like 3 billion people that still don't have a smartphone. So who's going to win that war? Is it going to be Apple? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Samsung? Or is it going to be Microsoft now that Microsoft has purchased Nokia? So these wars are going to be, these battles within this major war are going to be played out for the next 5 to 10 years. And so what you have to do is you have to be very careful that if you have a cash cow like Microsoft had with their operating system for the desktops, Windows, that you don't get complacent, that you don't relax. You got to see, always look for competitors, no matter how big they are, no matter how small they are, whether they're trying to flank you. And if they're flanking you, then you have to look at the growth of that product category or the sector, and make sure that the relative velocity between that growth of that product sector versus the growth of your product category and your major category of the product is not growing faster than you are. So there's a dance to be played out from a marketing perspective, and this all translates to Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Until next time.